This pew I'm sitting on is one of the original pews from the original worship center. And this pew here has been in this office here, which was Pastor Ron's office, for as long as I can remember, since he took over as senior pastor, from what I understand. And so I wanted to leave it here as a way to honor Pastor Ron, but also to honor the history of our church as well. As we talk about a warm community, I want to challenge you where you sit. You know where this is going. Week after week after week after week, we sit in the same spot. So, as we are talking about being a warm community, I want to challenge all of us this week as well as next week to sit in a different spot. Now, I know that's asking a lot, but just see what happens. And the purpose of that would be to meet new people that you may not know, and you might be able to start a new friendship with other people sitting in a different area of our church. So this week and next week, as we work on building warmth in our church, as we build on working on relationships, let's sit somewhere else and develop new relationships. A shout out to Phil Spaulding's Ohana group. It was his group that came up with this idea, and they talked to Pastor Danny. Pastor Danny talked to me about saying, you know what? We should sit somewhere else so we can connect with other people. And I want to give a shout out to them. As we get into the video here, be encouraged and really listen to the stories that we are going to hear from Pastor Nofel and Pastor Marie about how Kaimuki Christian Church is such a warm community. Check it out.
It makes me think about how warm this church is for our people when it comes, not just our own people, but the people that visit in our church. You all remember Pete. You know, Pete is a homeless guy, a brother. So Pete comes to church. He goes in the service for service. He sits there and listens. He comes out and eats and walks around. And I see people walking around with him and talk with him and fellowship with Pete. And in the second service, he goes back in. He sits down, he listens, he comes out, he eats, he talks to people, he fellowship with people, and then he goes home. Our church, they look at Pete and say, we don't care what he looks like, and we don't care what he wears. They look at Pete as one of our own. Our churches, they don't look at the outside appearance of Pete, they look at what's inside of Pete. And Pete loves Jesus, no question about that. He loves Kaimuki Christian Church. The reason why he's coming back into a church is because he feels safe here. And again, you know, like our church, we don't judge him because he's homeless. We look at him as one of our own. You know, he's, like I said, he loves Jesus, man. He loves our church, and we love him. And again, we don't look at him, you know, from the outside. We don't care what he wears and what he looks like. Jesus loves him, and we love him too. Please say hi to Pete this Sunday. Say hi to Pete. Okay, let me tell you the story of Danny and Derek. You know, Derek is 13 years old and Danny is 15 years old. They're brothers from Balolo Housings. These two kids are very special. They are my common grace kids from Balolo Elementary School. Now they're in middle school. And when Derek and Danny come to church, people, hey Danny, hey Derek, you come to church today. You know, they feel so good about themselves. And one Sunday, I took them out to lunch after church. As we were having lunch, Danny said, Pastor Nofel, the church is so loving and they love us and they like us. And aunties always tell us to go eat. All right. So I paused for a moment. And I look at Danny and said, Danny, why do you ask that question? And Danny said, well, because we're from Balolo Housings. I try not to cry at that moment because that was powerful for me. I just paused. And then I look at Derek and Danny. I said, Derek, Danny, I want you guys to look at me. I said, Kaimuki Christian Church love you. They don't look at you the color of your skin. They don't look at you where you live. They don't look at you what language you speak. They look at you as one of ours. And we love you. And we want to welcome you and your dad and your mom and your siblings to our church anytime.
I think we're an exceptionally welcoming and warm church. I have people all the time come from the mainland or different places, and they're just blown away about literally how we just greet each other. I remember in the Bible it talks about greet each other with a holy kiss. And when I lived on the mainland, I would be like, that's never gonna happen. And you come here and that is what we do. I wanna be at a church that greets each other that way. So I love how we love each other. This morning I had an opportunity to go and do a baptism. And it was just amazing because it was a mom, and there at the baptism was KCS families, it was her Ohana group, it was her husband, it was her family, it was a friend from the park. I get chicken skin just thinking about how it was that it wasn't just one person who showed up for her, it was an entire community of people who love her through the church. I am super blessed to have Sammy Babs in my life. She's a high school senior. She's my person. I take her places with me. We're going to a conference this weekend. If I'm going out somewhere, hey Sammy, you want to go for a ride? Recently, Sammy Babs was interested in going to Samoa with us this summer, but she doesn't have the financial capacity to do that. She's finishing up high school. She's graduating as the valedictorian of Kalani this year, and she is getting ready to pay for her entire education to college in a few months. But God was putting it on her heart and our heart. And so we reached out to an older couple in our church, someone who had the financial capacity to help out. And the four of us got together and we met, and they wanted to hear her story and understand where she came from and her heart. And their heart was to share God's love with her and with other people around the world. And so they donated her trip to her. And it was just such a chicken skin moment when they said yes and believed in her. Now, they could go on the trip, they have the ability, but it's not in their season right now, but it is in Sammy's. And so how they did that was to make a sacrificial gift. They're paying for her financially and they're supporting her through prayer. I think this is gonna be a long-term connection. Sammy's really excited about what they would do for her. And the husband in this situation is very similar to how Sammy is right now and how he's growing up and how he paid for his own education. And so he feels like he's doing something just like people did for him, and we're continuing to pass that on. And this relationship will continue for a long time. I've never seen a teenager walk up to me and say, I want to hang out. But if you ask them, or if you tell them hi, or my favorite words are tell me more, when they tell you how things are going or what their soccer game was like. There's lots of relationships like that people can have just by spending time. Show up at a soccer game. Hey, come to the mall with me, because our teens and our young adults want to hang out with us. They want to be asked. And if we just take that moment and do it, they'll respond to us. They're happy when we show up. The cool thing is that it's not how old you are that matters. You can be an 80-year-old auntie, you can be someone my age, you can be 25, and we can still all interact together and hang out. It doesn't have to just be the same age.
We've been growing numerically and spiritually, and it's just exciting to see that everything is trending upwards, and it's amazing. Our Easter offering was a record-setting Easter offering because our church is so generous. Our church is so warm. People tell me all the time about how warm our church is, how inviting our church is, and that's just been, I think, the DNA of our church, that when it comes to being a warm community, we have that pretty nailed down. And in fact, since Easter, we've had 11 baptisms, people being baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And it's amazing to see all different generations being baptized and coming to be part of the family of God. And you, the Ohana groups, you are a major part of that. Doesn't mean we can't improve and we can't grow. This week, look for somebody that you can reach out to. Look for that new family or that new person who comes you can reach out to. And as an Ohana group, maybe you as a group together could think of some ways of how you could reach out to people here on Sundays and Fridays. Think of other ways of how you could reach out to your neighbors, because we want to be a warm community. We want to be the hands and feet of Christ wherever we go, whether it's here at church at Kaimuki Christian Church or whether it's at home or on the sports field. We want to represent Christ the best we can with love and compassion. We'll see you next week.